Take a deep breath and feel the weight of your body settling into the mattress beneath you, letting your muscles soften as you prepare for a journey into the stillness. Allow the quiet of the room to wrap around you like a cool, velvet blanket as we begin our exploration of the ancient, towering cathedrals of the natural world. We are stepping into the heart of an old-growth forest, a place defined by its climax community status, a complex ecosystem that has remained relatively undisturbed for at least 150 to 200 years, though many of the giants you see here have been rooted in this earth for over 8 centuries. As you walk, you might notice that the air feels different. It is heavy with moisture and the scent of damp earth. This is because old-growth forests create their own microclimates. The temperature here is often 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than the surrounding open fields, protected by a dense, multi-layered canopy that acts as a natural thermal insulator. Reach out your hand and touch the bark of a Pseudotsuga menziesii, the Douglas fir. In these ancient specimens, the bark can grow up to 12 inches thick. Beneath your fingertips, you feel deep, corky ridges, a texture like weathered stone or dried clay. This thick bark isn't just for show. It is a sophisticated defense mechanism. It protects the living cambium layer, the delicate tissue responsible for growth from temperature fluctuations and the occasional brush of environmental stress. The bark feels cool, even in the height of summer, and its deep furrows provide thousands of microscopic niches for life. In fact, a single old-growth Douglas fir can be home to over 200 different species of insects, fungi, and lichens, many of which spend their entire life cycles hundreds of feet above the ground, never once touching the forest floor. As you move deeper into the hush of the trees, listen to the way the forest swallows sound. The ground beneath you is a thick, springy carpet of Hylocomium splendens, also known as glittering wood moss or steppe moss. This moss is fascinating because of its step-like growth pattern. Each year, it produces a new branch that grows out of the previous year's growth, allowing researchers to count the steps to determine the age of a patch, much like the rings of a tree. It feels like a damp, green sponge under your feet, and its dense structure is incredibly effective at absorbing decibels, creating a silence so profound you can hear the soft, rhythmic thrum of your own breathing. Look down at the fallen giants lying across the forest floor. These are nurse logs, and they are the lifeblood of the next generation. A single fallen western red cedar can take up to 400 years to fully decompose, acting as a slow-release nutrient reservoir. You might see a row of western hemlock seedlings, Tsuga heterophylla, growing in a straight line along the top of a decaying log. This happens because the log provides a perfect, elevated nursery, free from the competition of the crowded forest floor and rich in moisture. These logs can hold up to 200% of their dry weight in water, acting as giant, organic sponges that keep the forest hydrated during dry spells. If you press your palm against the decaying wood, it feels soft and cool, giving way slightly under your touch as it slowly returns its carbon to the earth. Above you, the canopy is a riot of green, but it is also a massive chemical factory. Breathe in deeply. That distinct forest smell is the result of phytoncides and terpenes, such as alpha-pinene and limonene. These are volatile organic compounds produced by the trees to protect themselves from microbes and pests. What's fascinating is that when you inhale these compounds, they have a measurable effect on your nervous system, lowering cortisol levels and boosting the activity of natural killer cells in your immune system. You are literally breathing in the forest's own medicine. Look up toward the light. You'll notice the Picea sitchensis, the Sitka spruce, which can reach staggering heights of over 300 feet. Its wood is legendary for its high strength-to-weight ratio, a result of long, straight, trached cells that provide the quiet strength needed to withstand the powerful winds of the Pacific coast. The needles of the spruce are sharp to the touch, a contrast to the soft, flat needles of the Pacific silver fir, Abies amabilis, nearby. If you turn over a needle of the silver fir, you will see two bright, silvery bands of stomata, the microscopic pores through which the tree breathes. These bands give the tree its name and are a specialized adaptation for capturing light in the dim, shadowed world of the understory. In this forest, the most important work is often happening where you cannot see it. Beneath the moss and the soil is the mycorrhizal network, often called the wood wide web. A single teaspoon of this forest soil can contain several miles of fungal filaments, or hyphae. These fungi, particularly species like Rhizopogon, form a symbiotic relationship with the tree roots. The trees provide the fungi with sugars produced through photosynthesis, and in exchange, the fungi scavenge the soil for phosphorus and nitrogen, delivering it directly to the tree's root system. This network allows trees of different species to communicate and share resources. A large mother tree can actually shunt excess sugar through the fungal network to smaller seedlings that are struggling in the shade. It is a slow, silent, and incredibly efficient system of mutual support. High in the upper branches, you might see clumps of Lobaria oregana, or lettuce lichen. This isn't a parasite, it's an epiphyte, a plant that grows on another plant for physical support. Lettuce lichen is a tripartite lichen, meaning it consists of a fungus, an alga, and a cyanobacterium. This unique partnership allows it to perform nitrogen fixation, taking nitrogen gas from the atmosphere and converting it into a form that plants can use. When the lichen becomes heavy with winter rains and falls to the forest floor, it decomposes and provides up to 50% of the nitrogen required by the entire ecosystem. It is a reminder that, in an old-growth forest, every piece of life, no matter how small, has a vital role to play. As you stand in a small clearing, you might notice sunflecks, brief patches of intense sunlight that pierce through gaps in the canopy as the sun moves across the sky. In an old-growth forest, only about 2% to 5% of total sunlight reaches the floor. Plants like the sword fern Polystichum munitum have evolved to survive in this low-light environment, but they are masters of the sunfleck. When a beam of light hits their fronds, they can rapidly ramp up their photosynthetic rate to capture as much energy as possible in those few precious minutes. The fronds feel leathery and tough, a texture designed to prevent moisture loss in the dry summer months. The soil itself is a masterpiece of slow time. In a temperate old-growth forest, it can take between 500 and 1,000 years to form just 1 inch of nutrient-dense topsoil. This layer, known as the O-horizon, consists of organic matter in various stages of decay, needles, twigs, bird feathers, and insect husks. This soil is incredibly efficient at storing carbon. Old-growth forests are among the most effective carbon sinks on the planet, locking away vast amounts of CO2 in their massive trunks and deep, fungal-rich earth. When you walk here, you are walking on centuries of accumulated life, a dense, dark history that feels cool and grounding. Listen to the water. In these forests, the multi-layered canopy acts like a giant umbrella. During a light rain, up to 30% of the precipitation never actually touches the ground. Instead, it is intercepted by the vast surface area of the leaves, mosses, and lichens, where it is slowly evaporated back into the atmosphere. This process, known as canopy interception, helps regulate the humidity of the forest, keeping it consistently moist and preventing the soil from eroding during heavy downpours. The sound of water here is never a roar. It is a constant, gentle drip, a rhythmic tink, 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 as droplets fall from needles to moss, a sound that signals a world in perfect balance. Inside the trunk of these giants, a silent miracle of physics is occurring. To move water from the roots to the topmost needles of a 300-foot tree, the tree must overcome the immense pull of gravity. It does this through the cohesion tension theory. Because water molecules are polar, they stick together like a chain. As water evaporates from the stomata in the leaves, a process called transpiration, it pulls the entire chain of water molecules upward through the xylem tubes. This requires a pressure of nearly 20 atmospheres, yet the tree accomplishes it without a single moving part, a testament to the quiet, mechanical strength of its internal structure. As the light begins to soften, notice the standing dead trees, or snags. Though they are no longer growing, they are far from lifeless. A snag can remain standing for over a century, providing essential nesting sites for primary cavity nesters like the pileated woodpecker. The wood of a snag is often riddled with the galleries of carpenter ants and beetles, which in turn provide food for a variety of birds. The texture of a snag is dry and brittle, often silvered by the sun, representing a different phase of the forest's eternal cycle, a phase of giving back. of providing a home for others, even after the sap has stopped flowing. In the stillness of this ancient place, you can feel the slow, steady pulse of life. There is no rush here. A tree may take a century just to reach the canopy, waiting patiently in the shade for a gap to open. This is the quiet strength of the old-growth forest, a resilience built on deep roots, complex interconnections, and a timescale that dwarfs our own. Feel the coolness of the air on your skin and the stability of the earth beneath you as we continue to drift deeper into the heart of this magnificent, living world. Consider for a moment that the very concept of an old-growth forest is a relatively recent addition to our scientific vocabulary. While these ecosystems have existed for millennia, it wasn't until the late 1970s that ecologists like Jerry Franklin and his colleagues began to formally define what makes these places unique. Before that, much of the world viewed these ancient stands simply as over-mature timber. We now understand that they are highly specialized biological storehouses, operating on a timeline that far exceeds a human lifespan. As you lie there, imagine the forest as a living library, where each tree is a volume of history, and the very air you breathe is a mixture of gases that has been refined by these giants for centuries. Notice how the atmosphere shifts as we move toward a massive western red cedar, known scientifically as Thuja plicata. For the indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest, this tree was, and is, the tree of life. Throughout history, humans have interacted with these giants in ways that left the trees intact. If you were to run your hand along the base of some of these ancient cedars, you might feel a long, smooth, vertical scar where the bark is missing. These are culturally modified trees, or CMTs. Centuries ago, harvesters would carefully remove a single strip of the inner bark, which is rich in strong, flexible fibers. They did this with such precision that the tree's vascular system remained functional, allowing the cedar to continue growing for another 500 or 800 years. This bark was woven into watertight hats and baskets, a testament to a historical relationship built on endurance rather than extraction. What's happening now is a slow-motion playback of the Earth's climate. In the early 20th century, specifically around 1904, a scientist named A.E. Douglas began looking at the cross-sections of trees not as wood, but as data. He founded the science of dendrochronology, or tree ring dating. Picture the microscopic structure of a single tree ring. It consists of two parts: the early wood, which is light-colored and grows rapidly in the spring with large, thin-walled cells to transport water, and the late wood, which is darker, denser, and grows more slowly in the late summer. By measuring the width of these rings, researchers can reconstruct the rainfall and temperature patterns of a region going back over 1,000 years. It is as if the tree is a stylus on a spinning record, etching the vibrations of the climate into its own physical body. Deep within the wood of the white pine, Pinus strobus, lies a history of global exploration. In the 17th and 18th centuries, these trees were so vital for their height and straightness, often reaching 200 feet, that agents of the British Crown would walk through the forests of New England and mark the best specimens with a king's broad arrow. This three-pronged mark designated the tree as property of the Royal Navy to be used as masts for warships. The resinous scent you smell when you crush a pine needle today, that sharp, citrusy aroma, is largely due to alpha-pinene. This chemical served as a natural preservative, helping those wooden masts withstand the corrosive salt spray of the Atlantic Ocean for decades. Think of the forest floor as an archaeological site where the artifacts are still alive. Beneath your feet, the soil is composed of layers that palynologists, scientists who study pollen, can use to map the history of the entire landscape. By taking core samples from nearby lake sediments, they have found fossilized pollen grains from these very species, dating back to the end of the last ice age, roughly 10,000 years ago. This tells us that the quiet strength we observe today is the result of a post-glacial migration, where trees slowly reclaimed the land at a rate of about 200 meters per year as the ice sheets retreated. Consider the temperature of the air around a coast redwood, Sequoia sempervirens. These are the tallest living things on the planet, with the most famous specimen, Hyperion, reaching a height of over 380 feet. In the 1800s, early naturalists were baffled by how these trees could survive the long, dry summers of California. They eventually discovered that redwoods don't just wait for rain, they harvest the fog. Their needles are shaped to capture moisture from the heavy coastal mist, which then drips down to the roots, a process called fog drip. This can provide the equivalent of an extra 30 inches of rainfall per year. As you rest, imagine that cool grey mist settling over the needles, each drop a tiny gift of hydration that allows the tree to maintain its massive stature. Scientists discovered in 1779, through the work of Jan Ingenhousz, that trees possess the incredible ability to purify the air, but only in the presence of light. What he was observing was the historical foundation of our understanding of photosynthesis. Within each leaf, there are millions of stomata microscopic valves that look like tiny mouths. At this very moment, even in the fading light, these stomata are performing a delicate balancing act. They must stay open long enough to take in carbon dioxide, but not so long that the tree loses too much internal water vapor. An old-growth forest is so efficient at this that a single acre can sequester up to 300 tons of carbon, holding it in a stable, solid form for centuries. At the microscopic level, the connection between trees was first scientifically described in 1885 by Albert Bernhard Frank, who coined the term mycorrhiza, meaning fungus root. Before this discovery, many botanists believed that fungi found on tree roots were harmful parasites. Frank was the first to suggest that this was a symbiotic alliance. What's noteworthy here is that this historical shift in perspective changed how we view the forest, not as a collection of individual competitors, but as a collaborative network. When you touch the soil, you are touching a web of life that has been refining its cooperation for over 450 million years, long before the first humans ever walked beneath these boughs. Notice the visual texture of the lichens hanging from the branches, such as the old man's beard or usnea. Historically, these were used by various cultures to create vibrant dyes and even early forms of medicine, as they contain usnic acid, a natural antibiotic. These lichens grow with agonizing slowness. Some crustose species expand by only 0.5 millimeters per year. If you see a patch of lichen the size of a dinner plate on a rock, you are looking at a living entity that may be older than the oldest cathedrals in Europe. They are the ultimate practitioners of patience, thriving in the clean, unpolluted air that only an old-growth ecosystem can provide. Observe the girth of the giants around you. The General Sherman tree, a giant sequoia, holds the record for the most voluminous living stem on Earth, estimated at about 52,500 cubic feet. To put that in perspective, that is enough wood to build over 120 average-sized houses. However, the tree's strength doesn't come from its hardness alone, it comes from its resilience. The bark of a sequoia can be up to 2 feet thick and is rich in tannins, which give it a reddish hue and make it almost entirely resistant to rot and boring insects. This thickness also acts as a thermal shield against low-intensity surface fires. Historically, these fires were a natural part of the forest cycle, clearing out the underbrush and allowing the sequoia's tiny, heat-activated cones to release their seeds into the nutrient-rich ash. Consider the sensory experience of the forest's blue haze. Early explorers in the Appalachian Mountains often described a sapphire-colored mist clinging to the peaks. We now know this is caused by BVOCs, or biogenic volatile organic compounds. When trees are warm, they release these gases, which scatter blue light waves more effectively than other colors, a phenomenon known as Rayleigh scattering. These compounds aren't just a visual effect, they also act as nuclei for cloud formation. In a very real sense, the forest is participating in the creation of its own weather, seeding the clouds that will eventually return as the rain it needs to survive. As you settle further into your rest, think about the way a nurse log functions over decades. When a massive tree falls, its journey is only half over. It enters a stage called coarse woody debris. Over the next 50 to 100 years, a succession of organisms from wood-boring beetles to bracket fungi, like Ganoderma, breaks down the lignin and cellulose. This process is so slow and steady that the log remains a stable habitat for generations of salamanders and shrews. The log's temperature remains remarkably constant, even when the air above fluctuates, providing a thermal refuge that has been used by forest creatures for millions of years. The stillness you feel is the result of immense structural stability. The root systems of these trees often extend 2 to 3 times the width of the canopy, and in many species, the roots of neighboring trees actually graft together physically. This means that when the wind pushes against one tree, the mechanical stress is distributed across the entire stand. This subterranean architecture is a form of collective strength that humans only began to fully map with ground-penetrating radar in the late 20th century. You are resting in a place where every element is anchored to every other element, creating a sanctuary of profound historical permanence. In this space, time is measured not in minutes, but in the slow accumulation of needles on the forest floor and the gradual thickening of bark. The air is cool, the sounds are muffled by centuries of moss, and the legacy of the forest is etched into every fiber of the wood. You are a guest in a world that has mastered the art of endurance, a world that continues its quiet work of growth and renewal, just as it has for an eternity. Imagine the subterranean world beneath you as a vast, interconnected neighborhood utility grid, where the trees act as both the architects and the engineers. What's taking place beneath the surface is a process known as hydraulic redistribution, or hydraulic lift. During the night, while the forest is still and the sun is absent, deep-rooted giants like the sugar pine, Pinus lambertiana, use their taproots, which can descend over 20 meters into the earth, to pull water up from deep, saturated aquifers. But they don't keep all this moisture for themselves. Instead, they release a portion of it into the drier upper layers of the soil. You might visualize this as a community water fountain where the elders share their bounty with the smaller ferns and shrubs whose roots cannot reach the depths. This nightly gift ensures that the entire ecosystem remains hydrated even during a long summer drought. At this very moment, consider the sheer mechanical genius of the wood that surrounds you. To understand the strength of an old-growth tree, it helps to think of it as a natural form of reinforced concrete. The wood is composed of 2 primary materials, cellulose and lignin. Cellulose acts like the steel rebar in a skyscraper, providing tensile strength and flexibility, so the tree can bend without snapping. Lignin is the concrete, a complex organic polymer that fills the spaces between the cellulose fibers, providing compressive strength and rigidity. This combination allows a Coast Douglas fir to support thousands of tons of weight while swaying gently in a breeze. The wood is so dense and well structured that even a piece the size of a standard sugar cube can support the weight of a full-grown elephant without being crushed. Take a moment to notice the texture of the leaves or needles above you. They are coated in something called epicuticular wax. You can relate this to the high-tech, water-repellent coating on a modern raincoat. This wax layer, often only a few micrometers thick, is essential for the tree's survival. It creates a hydrophobic surface that prevents water from clogging the microscopic pores on the leaf's underside. If you were to look through a microscope at a leaf from a big-leaf maple, Acer macrophyllum, you would see about 1,000 stomata per square millimeter. These are like tiny, automated sliding doors that open and close to regulate the exchange of gases. When the air is too dry, these doors shut tight to prevent the tree from wilting, keeping the internal pressure, or turgor pressure, perfectly balanced. One might compare the tree's internal communication system to a very slow, very steady telegraph line. While trees don't have a nervous system, they do use electrical pulses to send information. When a branch is bruised or a leaf is nibbled, a change in the electrochemical gradient moves through the phloem, the tree's inner skin, at a rate of about 1 centimeter per minute. This is much slower than a human nerve impulse, which travels at roughly 100 meters per second, but it is incredibly effective. This signal warns the rest of the tree to begin producing defense compounds, like tannins, which make the leaves taste bitter and difficult to digest. It is a silent, internal conversation that has been refined over millions of years of evolution. Observe the mosses that cling to the lower bark, specifically species like Sphagnum gergensoni. These plants are the forest's high-capacity reservoirs. Sphagnum moss is composed of many large, dead cells with thickened walls that can hold a staggering amount of liquid, often 20 to 26 times its own dry weight in water. To put that in perspective, Imagine a standard bath towel that could soak up an entire swimming pool's worth of water without dripping. This water retention creates a permanent, humid zone at the base of the tree, which supports a hidden world of microscopic life, including tardigrades, eight-legged water bears that can survive extreme temperatures by entering a state of suspended animation. Think about the sap flowing through the tree as being under pressure, much like the air in a car tire. In the springtime, the internal pressure in a sugar maple can reach up to 40 pounds per square inch. This pressure is what pushes the nutrient-rich sap upward to fuel the growth of new buds. The sap is a complex mixture of water, minerals, and sucrose, providing the chemical energy needed for the tree to build its massive structure. When you lean against the trunk, you are leaning against a pressurized cylinder of life, a column of liquid energy that is constantly moving, even if it appears perfectly still to the naked eye. You might find it helpful to visualize the forest canopy as a giant, multi-layered attic insulation system. In an old-growth stand, the complexity of the branches creates a massive amount of surface area. A single, mature Sitka spruce can have over 60 million needles. If you were to pluck every needle and lay them out flat, the total surface area would cover roughly half an acre, about half the size of a professional football field. This vast expanse of green acts as a massive solar collector, capturing photons and converting them into chemical energy through the work of chlorophyll A and B. These pigments are specifically tuned to absorb blue and red light, reflecting the green wavelengths that give the forest its characteristic hue. What's happening now in the soil is an intricate dance of decomposition. Think of the fungal mycelium as the forest's waste management department. In a single acre of old-growth soil, there can be as much as 2 tons of fungal biomass. These fungi produce specialized enzymes that can break down lignin, a substance so tough that very few other organisms on Earth can digest it. Without these fungi, the forest would eventually be buried under its own fallen wood. Instead, the fungi dismantle the wood molecule by molecule, turning ancient trunks back into rich, dark humus. This process is so efficient that a leaf falling today will have its nutrients recycled and taken up by the roots of its parent tree within just a few years. Consider the role of the forest's air quality sensors, the lichens like Hypogymnia physodes or monkshood lichen. Because lichens have no roots and absorb all their nutrients directly from the atmosphere, they are incredibly sensitive to pollutants. Scientists use them as bioindicators. If the lichens are lush and diverse, the air is remarkably pure. You might compare them to a carbon monoxide detector in a home, but one that monitors the health of the entire sky. They sit quietly on the bark, capturing nitrogen and minerals from the rain, performing a vital service for the ecosystem while remaining almost completely motionless. The forest floor is covered in a layer of leaf litter known as duff. This layer functions exactly like a high-end down sleeping bag for the Earth. It is composed of decaying organic matter and trapped air pockets, which provide incredible thermal insulation. Even when the air temperature above the duff drops below freezing, the soil beneath remains several degrees warmer, protecting the delicate root tips and hibernating insects from the frost. This layer also prevents the soil from drying out, acting as a mulch that keeps the moisture levels consistent for the trillions of bacteria and fungi living just millimeters below the surface. In this environment, even the imperfections are functional. You might see a tree with a candelabra top where the main trunk has split into several vertical branches. This often happens when the original lead shoot is damaged, and the tree compensates by redirecting its growth hormones, called auxins, to multiple side branches. This structural adaptation allows the tree to capture even more light in the crowded canopy, effectively turning a setback into an opportunity for increased energy production. It is a form of biological resilience that allows these organisms to survive for a millennium or more. Notice the way the light filters through the skylights in the canopy. When an ancient tree finally falls, it creates a light gap. This is a crucial event in the forest's life cycle. For decades, small seedlings like the western hemlock have been idling in the deep shade, growing only a few millimeters a year. When the light gap opens, it's like a starting pistol for a race. These small trees suddenly receive 20 times more light than they did before, and they begin a period of rapid vertical growth to claim the newly available space. This constant slow-motion reshuffling ensures the forest remains a diverse, multi-generational community. The air here is filled with a fine mist of spores, pollen, and aerosols. Each breath you take contains a microscopic world. At this very moment, thousands of species of fungi are releasing their spores into the air, some using sophisticated water cannons to launch them away from the parent mushroom at speeds of up to 25 meters per second. These spores are so light they can stay aloft for days, traveling on the gentlest of thermal currents. They are the seeds of the future forest, waiting for the perfect moment to settle and begin the work of connection and growth once again. As you rest, allow the immense stability of this system to bring you a sense of calm. The forest doesn't struggle to grow, it simply follows the laws of physics and biology, moving with a patient, unhurried strength. Every cell, every leaf, and every fungal thread is working in harmony to maintain this sanctuary. You are part of this rhythm now, breathing the air they have filtered, resting in the coolness they have created, and sharing in the quiet, enduring strength of the ancient woods. Picture this, your own life's timeline superimposed against the rings of a coast redwood. While we measure our milestones in decades, these trees measure theirs in centuries. At this very moment, there are trees in the bristlecone pine forests of the White Mountains, such as the specimen known as Methuselah, that have been alive for over 4,800 years. This means they were already saplings when the Great Pyramid of Giza was being constructed. When you consider the bigger picture, an old-growth forest is not just a collection of plants, it is a biological retirement fund for the planet, an accumulated wealth of carbon and genetic diversity that has been compounding interest for millennia. Notice how the trees around you seem to respect one another's boundaries. If you look straight up at the canopy of a Sitka spruce or a lodgepole pine, you might see a phenomenon called crown shyness. Scientists have discovered that the uppermost branches often do not touch, leaving a narrow, winding river of blue sky between the individual crowns. This is a form of mutual respect that prevents the trees from abrading each other's delicate leaf buds during high winds. It also ensures that light is distributed more evenly to the lower layers of the forest. Much like how we value our personal space to thrive, these giants maintain a gentle distance, a physical boundary that promotes the collective health of the entire stand. Deep within the upper reaches of the forest, hundreds of feet above the ground, exists a world that humans only began to explore with ropes and harnesses in the late 20th century. What's happening now in those heights is the formation of canopy soils. Over hundreds of years, falling needles, dust, and animal remains collect in the crotches of massive branches, eventually decomposing into a rich, dark soil that can be up to a meter deep. Within these aerial gardens, entire ecosystems thrive that never touch the forest floor. Scientists have found the wandering salamander, Anides vagrans, living in these canopy mats 200 feet in the air. These amphibians are lungless, breathing entirely through their moist skin, and they can spend their entire 20-year lives in a single tree, navigating the heights with prehensile tails. Consider the personal connection between your own physiology and the chemistry of the forest. Have you ever noticed the specific, earthy aroma that rises from the ground after a light rain? This scent is called petrichor, and it is largely produced by a group of soil-dwelling bacteria known as streptomyces. As they break down organic matter, they release a compound called geosmin. Human beings are incredibly sensitive to this smell, more so than sharks are to blood in the water. We can detect geosmin at a concentration of just 5 parts per trillion. This deep-seated sensitivity is a relic of our evolutionary past, a biological signal that told our ancestors where the land was fertile and where water was nearby. As you breathe in this scent now, you are tapping into a sensory bridge that has connected our species to the earth for millions of years. At this very moment, the trees are engaging in a process called thermotolerance. On warmer days, they release a gas called isoprene. You might think of isoprene as a microscopic heat shield for the leaves. It stabilizes the internal membranes of the chloroplasts, allowing the tree to continue photosynthesizing even when the temperature climbs. Without this chemical buffer, the delicate machinery that turns sunlight into sugar would begin to break down. It is a form of internal regulation that mirrors the way your own body maintains its core temperature, a silent and automatic adjustment to the world around it. Notice the way the forest integrates the gifts of the surrounding landscape. In the Pacific Northwest, researchers have used isotopic analysis to discover a fascinating link between the forest and the ocean. They looked for nitrogen, 1,5, an isotope that is primarily found in the sea. They discovered that up to 80% of the nitrogen in the needles of trees near coastal rivers actually comes from the bodies of Pacific salmon, Oncorhynchus species. After the salmon complete their life cycle, their nutrients are distributed throughout the forest by eagles and other animals. The trees take up this marine nitrogen, using it to build their massive trunks. In a very real sense, the forest is built of the sea, a testament to the fact that no ecosystem is an island, and every life is woven into a much larger, global tapestry. What's happening now beneath the bark is a response to the pull of the earth itself. Trees have a sense of gravitropism, the ability to perceive and grow in response to gravity. Within the tips of their roots, they have specialized cells called statocytes, containing tiny starch granules known as statoliths. These granules are denser than the surrounding cytoplasm and always settle at the lowest point of the cell. This tells the root exactly which way is down, ensuring it stays anchored in the soil while the shoots grow toward the sun. It is a constant, internal compass that keeps the tree upright and stable throughout its long life. Consider the marbled murrelet, a small seabird that remained a mystery to biologists for decades. While most seabirds nest on cliffs or islands, the marbled murrelet was eventually found nesting high in the moss-covered branches of old-growth Douglas firs, sometimes up to 50 miles inland. They require the wide, flat, mossy limbs that only develop once a tree is several centuries old. This bird's survival is inextricably linked to the age of the forest. The bigger picture here is one of specialized dependence. The bird provides the forest with nutrients from the ocean, and the forest provides the bird with a sanctuary that exists nowhere else. Scientists discovered that the growth of an old-growth tree never truly stops. While we often think of growth as getting taller, for an ancient tree, growth becomes about volume and girth. A study of 403 tree species worldwide found that for most trees, the rate of carbon accumulation actually increases as they get older and larger. A single, large, old tree can add as much carbon to the forest in a year as is contained in an entire mid-sized tree. This means that as you rest here, these giants are working harder than ever, pulling carbon from the atmosphere and locking it away in their dense, heavy wood. They are the planet's most experienced laborers, refining the air with an efficiency that increases with every passing century. Picture this, the forest floor as a slow-motion chemical laboratory. When a leaf falls, it enters the L layer of the soil, the litter layer. Over the next year, it will be colonized by fungi and bacteria, moving into the F layer, fermentation, and eventually the H layer, humus. This process of breakdown is what releases the nutrients that the mother trees then redistribute through the mycorrhizal network. The forest is a closed-loop system of recycling, where nothing is wasted and every death is merely a transformation into the next generation's fuel. It is a model of sustainability that has operated without intervention for hundreds of millions of years. Think about the way trees respond to touch, a phenomenon known as thigmotropism. While it's most obvious in climbing vines, even massive trees are sensitive to the physical touch of their neighbors or the constant pressure of the wind. This touch triggers the production of reaction wood, thicker, denser layers of cells that reinforce the trunk in the direction of the stress. If a tree grows on a slope, it will produce more of this wood on one side to act as a natural buttress. It is a living record of every physical interaction the tree has ever had, a physical autobiography written in the density of its fibers. Deep within the soil, the wood wide web isn't just about sharing food, it's about sharing information. When a tree is under stress from a drought, it can send chemical distress signals through the fungal filaments to its neighbors. In response, those neighbors may preemptively close their stomata to conserve water or begin producing protective enzymes. This collective intelligence means that a forest is far more resilient than a group of individual trees could ever be. It is a community of constant, silent communication, a network that ensures the survival of the whole by looking out for the parts. As you look at the different ages of trees around you, notice the understory suppression. A young western hemlock can survive for up to 100 years in the deep shade of a mother tree, growing only a few inches a year. During this time, its wood becomes incredibly dense and fine-grained, which will eventually give it the strength to support its own weight once it reaches the canopy. This period of waiting is not wasted time. It is a period of hardening and preparation. It's a reminder that sometimes the most important growth happens when we are still, and that patience is a vital biological strategy. The personal connection you feel to this place is not a coincidence. The air you are breathing is enriched with oxygen and negative ions, which are particularly abundant near the falling water and dense foliage of an old-growth forest. Exposure to these ions is linked to increased levels of the mood-regulating chemical serotonin. You are physically and chemically responding to the environment, your heart rate slowing and your blood pressure stabilizing as your body recognizes the health of this ancient ecosystem. In this sanctuary of time, the long-term implications are clear. The forest is a guardian of the future, holding the soil, regulating the water cycle, and stabilizing the climate. It moves with a quiet strength that doesn't need to shout to be felt. You are part of this enduring legacy now, resting in the care of giants who have seen the world change many times over and who continue to stand, rooted and resilient, in the face of all things. At this very moment, your surroundings are defined by a silence so heavy and textured it feels almost like a physical presence. What's particularly intriguing is that this hush isn't just an absence of noise. It is a sophisticated piece of acoustic engineering. If you were to examine the forest floor, you would find that the thick cushions of moss, such as the badge moss, Plagiomnium insigne, act as high-efficiency acoustic tiles. Research in the field of acoustic ecology has shown that a dense layer of forest moss can absorb up to 90% of incidental sound energy. This happens because the moss is incredibly porous, trapping sound waves within millions of tiny air pockets where their energy is converted into a negligible amount of heat. As you rest, you are essentially inside a living, breathing recording studio, where the padded walls of the earth ensure that every breath you take is the loudest sound in your immediate world. Notice the way the light behaves as it filters through the humid air. What you are witnessing is a phenomenon known as the Tyndall effect. When sunlight hits the microscopic water droplets and aerosols suspended in the forest air, the shorter blue wavelengths are scattered, creating those visible, angelic beams of light that seem to lean against the trees. The light that actually reaches the forest floor has been heavily filtered. Most of the red and blue light has already been absorbed by the chlorophyll in the canopy, specifically at the 430 and 660 nanometer peaks, leaving behind a surplus of green and far red light. This creates a specific spectral environment that tells the seeds on the ground exactly where they are. Seeds of the Douglas fir contain a light-sensitive protein called phytochrome. When the ratio of far red light, 730 nanometers, to red light, 660 nanometers, is high, the seed knows it is in the shade of a giant and remains dormant, waiting patiently for decades until a gap in the canopy opens and the light spectrum shifts. As you breathe in, the air feels cool and surprisingly heavy. This coolness is the result of a massive biological heat exchange process. A single mature tree can release up to 400 liters of water into the atmosphere every day through its leaves. As this liquid water turns into vapor, it consumes energy in a process called the latent heat of vaporization. This is the same principle that cools your skin when you sweat, but on a gargantuan scale. The cooling power of a single large tree is equivalent to 10 room-sized air conditioners running for 20 hours a day. This is why, even on a scorching afternoon, the heart of an old-growth forest remains a thermal sanctuary, with a relative humidity that is often 10% to 20% higher than the surrounding landscape. The air is literally being washed and chilled by the breath of the trees. If you were to reach out and touch the bark of a western hemlock, you would notice its rough, plate-like texture. This outer layer, the phellem or cork, is saturated with a waxy substance called suberin. Suberin is one of nature's most effective waterproofers, a complex biopolymer that prevents the tree from losing its internal moisture to the air. But because the tree still needs to breathe, The bark is dotted with lenticels, small, porous openings that allow for gas exchange between the living tissues of the trunk and the atmosphere. What's noteworthy is that the texture of the bark also creates a boundary layer of air. This is a thin pocket of still air that clings to the surface of the tree, providing an extra layer of insulation against the wind. It is a microscopic microclimate that allows tiny organisms to remain active even when the weather outside the forest is harsh. Current research suggests that the scents you are experiencing are actually a complex language of chemical signals. Beyond the pinene we've discussed, the forest air is rich with compounds like sabinane and limonene. Sabinane, in particular, contributes to that spicy, woody aroma of the cedars. These volatile organic compounds, VOCs, are often released in response to the changing light or temperature. At a cellular level, these chemicals help the tree manage metabolic byproducts and neutralize cellular waste that accumulates during the intense work of photosynthesis. When you inhale these scents, you are participating in a chemical dialogue that has been occurring for 300 million years. The scent of the forest is the smell of a perfectly functioning system, one that is clearing away its own oxidative stress with effortless efficiency. Observe the microscopic details of the leaves nearby. If you were to look at a cross-section of a leaf from a sword fern, you would see a highly organized architecture. The top layer, the palisade mesophyll, consists of tall, cylindrical cells packed with chloroplasts, standing like soldiers to capture the incoming photons. Below them is the spongy mesophyll, a loose arrangement of cells with large air spaces between them. This internal lung allows carbon dioxide to diffuse quickly to the photosynthetic cells. If the air is very humid, you might even see a drop of water hanging from the tip of a leaf, a process called guttation. This isn't dew, it's water being physically pushed out of the leaf by root pressure from below. It is a sign that the tree is so well hydrated that it is literally overflowing with life-sustaining fluid. Consider the physics of the soil beneath you. It is not a solid mass, but a complex matrix of minerals, organic matter, and hygroscopic water that is held so tightly to soil particles by electrical charges that it cannot be easily removed. This creates a stable, hydrated environment for the roots. The mycorrhizal fungi that weave through this soil are transporting minerals like phosphorus and nitrogen at a rate of several millimeters per hour. This may seem slow, but across the miles of filaments in a single acre, it represents a massive relocation of resources. This subterranean transport system ensures that even a tree growing in a nutrient-poor patch of soil receives the elements it needs to build its massive structure. Notice how the forest creates its own color palette through chemistry. The deep, rich greens are a result of the high concentration of chlorophyll necessary to survive in low-light conditions. But in the autumn, or in new growth, you might see flashes of red and purple. These are anthocyanins, pigments that act as a biological sunscreen. They protect the leaf's delicate photosynthetic machinery from being damaged by excess light before the chlorophyll has a chance to fully develop. This protective layer ensures that the tree can maximize its energy capture without burning its own tissues. It is a delicate balance of light and chemistry that keeps the forest vibrant and resilient. What's happening now in the canopy is a slow-motion dance of hydration. During the day, the tree loses water to the atmosphere, creating a negative pressure that slightly shrinks the diameter of the trunk. You can actually measure this with a sensitive instrument called a dendrometer. At night, as the tree rehydrates, the trunk swells back to its original size. The entire forest is pulsing in a slow, rhythmic cycle of contraction and expansion. This is the heartbeat of the woods, a cycle that mirrors the rise and fall of your own chest as you drift towards sleep. Scientists discovered that the stickiness of the forest air is due to the presence of biological aerosols, tiny particles of pollen, fungal spores, and bacteria. These particles act as cloud condensation nuclei. In the bigger picture, the forest is not just a passive observer of the weather, it is an active participant. By releasing these aerosols, the trees encourage the formation of clouds directly above the canopy, which in turn provides the shade and rain the forest needs to thrive. It is a self-sustaining loop of care and provision, where the forest creates the very conditions it requires for its own longevity. Think of the forest as a giant biological heat exchanger, moving energy and water with a silent, mechanical precision. Every leaf is a solar panel, every root is a water pump, and every fungal thread is a fiber optic cable carrying information. This system doesn't require any external input. It is powered entirely by the sun and the slow, steady recycling of its own materials. There is a profound security in this level of efficiency. You are resting within a machine that has been tuned over millions of years to be perfectly stable, perfectly quiet, and perfectly enduring. Notice the temperature of the ground again. Because of the specific heat capacity of the organic rich soil, meaning it takes a lot of energy to change its temperature, the forest floor remains remarkably consistent. While the air temperature might fluctuate by 20 degrees between day and night, the soil temperature, just a few inches down, may only change by a degree or two. This thermal stability is why so many creatures, from amphibians to microbes, find a permanent home here. It is a world of constant, reliable comfort, where the extremes of the outside world are buffered and softened. As your awareness continues to settle, consider the incredible longevity of the molecules that make up the trees. The carbon in the trunk of an ancient cedar was once carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, perhaps breathed out by a creature that lived 5 centuries ago. The tree has captured that carbon and turned it into solid, durable wood, holding it in place for the next 500 years. When you are in the forest, you are surrounded by a physical manifestation of the past, a living record of time that is both sturdy and soft. The air remains still, the scents continue to soothe your nervous system, and the silence of the moss wraps around you. You are part of this living, breathing engine now, a guest in a sanctuary of high-efficiency peace. The forest is doing its work, filtering the air, cooling the earth, and standing strong, allowing you to simply be, to rest in the shadow of giants who have mastered the art of the long, quiet life. As the final embers of daylight retreat from the canopy, the old-growth forest begins its gradual transition into a state of nocturnal restoration. This is not a cessation of life, but a shift in metabolic focus. At this very moment, the giants around you are engaging in a process known as nyctinisty, the rhythmic movement of plant parts in response to the onset of darkness. Scientists using terrestrial laser scanning have discovered that trees like the silver birch or Betula pendula actually droop their branches by as much as 10 centimeters as the sun sets. This gentle relaxation of the limbs is thought to be a result of a decrease in internal water pressure as the tree enters its own version of a sleep cycle. Notice how the forest air seems to grow even more still as the solar engine of photosynthesis powers down. What's happening now is a step-by-step sequence called stomatal closure. As light levels drop below a certain threshold, the guard cells surrounding each microscopic stoma lose potassium ions. This causes water to flow out of the guard cells, making them limp and effectively sealing the pore. By closing these millions of tiny doors, the tree prevents the loss of internal moisture during the night. For a mature sugar maple, Acer saccharum, this process is essential for maintaining the turgor pressure required to keep its massive structure upright and stable. Deep within the trunk, a different kind of activity is beginning to peak. While the tree is resting, it is also growing. In fact, many trees perform the majority of their actual stem elongation at night. During the day, the demand for water in the leaves is so high that the tree's cells are often slightly dehydrated. But as the stomata close and transpiration slows, the xylem, the tree's water-conducting tissue, finally fills to capacity. This increase in internal pressure, or hydrostatic potential, allows the cells in the cambium layer to expand and divide. You might visualize this as a slow, steady inflation, a microscopic stretching that adds another invisible layer of strength to the tree's girth while the world is dark. Consider the process of dark respiration that is now taking place. During the day, trees produce more oxygen than they consume, but at night, the ratio flips. The tree begins to break down the glucose it manufactured during the sunlit hours, using oxygen to convert that sugar into cellular energy, or ATP. This energy fuels the maintenance crew of the tree, the enzymes and proteins that repair cellular damage and flush metabolic byproducts from the vascular system. This is a highly organized, step-by-step chemical breakdown that ensures the tree's longevity, a quiet internal housekeeping that mirrors the way your own body repairs itself during sleep. The temperature of the forest floor is now beginning to stabilize. Because the soil is rich in organic matter and held together by a dense network of roots, it has a high thermal mass. This means it holds onto the heat of the day with remarkable tenacity. While the air temperature in the canopy might drop significantly, the soil temperature near the roots of a Douglas fir often remains within a narrow range of just 2 or 3 degrees. This thermal stability is crucial for the soil microbes, such as the actinomycetes, which continue their work of decomposition throughout the night. The scent of the earth, that rich, loamy aroma, is actually the smell of these bacteria being active, releasing a compound called geosmin as they break down the forest's waste into the nutrients of the future. Observe the way the water moves through the soil in a slow, upward migration. Now that the pull from the leaves has stopped, a phenomenon called root pressure takes over. The roots continue to pump minerals and ions into the xylem, which creates an osmotic gradient that draws water in from the surrounding earth. In some species, this pressure is strong enough to push water all the way to the tips of the leaves, where it may exit through specialized pores called hydathodes in a process known as guttation. It is a rhythmic hydraulic pulse that ensures every cell of the tree is fully saturated and prepared for the coming day. As the forest settles further into the night, the larger cycles of time come into focus. Consider the process of endodormancy, the deep sleep that trees enter during the winter months. To prepare for this, the tree follows a precise, multi-step sequence. First, it detects the shortening days through a pigment called phytochrome. This triggers the production of abscisic acid, a hormone that halts growth and signals the leaves to begin the process of abscission. At the base of each leaf, a separation layer forms a thin line of corky cells that eventually cuts off the flow of nutrients. Before the leaf falls, the tree carefully reabsorbs valuable minerals like magnesium and nitrogen, storing them in the bark and roots. This is why leaves change color. The green chlorophyll is being dismantled and its components recycled, leaving behind the yellow and orange carotenoids. It is a masterpiece of biological efficiency and preparation. Now, as we begin our own descent into rest, notice how the rhythms of the old-growth forest are reflected in your own body. Your breathing is becoming slow and rhythmic, much like the gentle contraction and expansion of a tree's trunk over a 24-hour cycle. Your muscles are softening, mimicking the drooping branches of the silver birch as it relaxes in the twilight. The quiet strength we have explored is not just a feature of the trees, it is a quality you are now cultivating within yourself. The forest has finished its visible work for the day. The solar collectors are stowed, the internal pumps are stabilized, and the communication through the mycorrhizal network has slowed to a steady, comforting hum. The giants are standing guard, rooted in centuries of stability, providing a canopy of peace that stretches out over you. You are safe within this ancient cathedral of life, where time moves slowly and every living thing knows how to rest. Allow the educational details of the forest to fade into the background, leaving only the sensation of being anchored and protected. You are drifting away from the world of facts and figures and into the world of pure, restorative stillness. The ancient trees are your companions in this rest, their long lives a testament to the power of patience and the necessity of the quiet hours. Listen to the silence one last time, the silence that is actually a symphony of 1 trillion tiny processes working in perfect harmony. Every cell in your body knows exactly what to do. Every breath you take is a part of this natural cycle. You are a part of the forest, and the forest is a part of you. As you move deeper into sleep, let these thoughts rest gently in your mind. I am as grounded and stable as the ancient roots beneath the earth. My body knows the rhythm of rest and renewal. I am breathing in the clarity and peace of the forest air. Like the great trees, I am patient with my own growth. I am surrounded by a canopy of safety and stillness. My rest is deep, restorative, and natural. The strength I need is already within me, quiet and enduring. I release the day's work, knowing the night will restore me. Every breath I take brings me closer to profound relaxation. I am cradled by the same earth that supports the giants of the woods. My mind is becoming as calm as the forest floor at midnight. I trust the slow, steady cycles of nature to guide my sleep. I am part of a timeless, peaceful world. I am sinking into the velvet darkness of a restorative night. The forest is standing watch, and I am free to let go. I am resting in the quiet strength of the ancient woods. My sleep is as deep as the roots of the redwood. Peace is the air I breathe, and rest is the ground I lie upon. I am drifting, steady, silent, and still. The trees will be here when the sun returns, but for now there is only the cool, dark hush of the old-growth night. The giants are resting, the earth is breathing, and you are perfectly, beautifully at peace. Good night.